A little boy's fascination with trains led him at the age of 46 to finally buy his own train set, causing the whole world to be lit with magic, and learn how to bring your own imagination to life. Welcome to the No Bow Tie Show. I'm John No Bow Tie Swoboda, author, musician, and mindset mentor. Get ready to discover your unique edge, tools to conquer doubt, and the power to live with limitless joy. A 5-year-old boy takes a trip from Chicago to Kansas City. Along the way, he was so spellbound and intrigued because he was on a train that he would never forget. And this train almost haunted him because his imagination was so fixed on every detail. And all he wanted in his life was to live that again and have the joy that he had while he was making that one train ride. And at the age of 15, he got a job working on trains, selling magazines and candy. He loved living that life on that train. He loved being a part of it and seeing other people have the joy that he had on his first train ride, that he could not let go of the memory. A lot of time went by, working a variety of jobs. He left Kansas City. He went to California, and he had successes, he had failures, but in the back of his mind was always the fascination that he had with that train. And one day, he was talking to his sister Ruth, and he was so excited to tell her that at the age of 46, he gave himself permission to go ahead and let that imagination fly, and he bought himself a train set. He set it up in his office, and he was so intrigued by it that he started to develop it to the point he ended up with a train set that went all through his house. And he was just living his dream for no particular reason. He didn't see this as something that he would one day, market as a toy or anything. He just loved the idea of letting his imagination fly. His interest finally served him well. His ideas were portrayed in the development of this train and the imagination of living on it again while he watched it go around the house. And in his mind was just a colorful world of satisfaction. It wasn't but 2 years later that he heard about a historic train display that was going on at the Chicago Fair. And they were bringing in full-size trains with themes. People had costumes, and they were acting out parts, and they were personifying, say, a train in New Orleans versus a train in California. He went to this, and the idea came back home with him. When he got there, he decided to create another train, and this time, it was a little bigger in size. He was working at that time at a studio where he had access to engineers and artists, and they helped him to design a train that was 1/8 the size of a real train. And he built a track in his own backyard, and he built the caboose himself. He loved to ride on that caboose. He would invite friends and family over just to enjoy his fantasy come to life of having a train in his own backyard. They were riding the train. It was big enough to court everybody around, and they were showing up in suit and tie with dresses, just with smiles beaming on their face. They couldn't wait. They didn't want to take turns to get on the train. It would carry them all through the 2,000 feet that he had laid out in his backyard. He decided once again to expand on that. He bought a plot of land that was south of the studio that he's working at, built a full-size train, invited the public in, wherever they may come from and however many there may be, invited them all in to take a train ride around of an amusement park that is now known as Disneyland. I tell this story not to just show the magnificence of Walt Disney, but to reveal to you that you have in you the imagination and the fire that can burn brighter by just staying involved in your ideas about it. For example, how many times do you have a thought that gives you a satisfying feeling inside, and you ignore it for everyday life, that you think maybe someday. Whereas really, if you lived that imagination, if you developed it into the idea that it could become, it could give you some sense of satisfaction beyond what you have today. I'm not talking about exploring the development of your own theme park here. I'm talking about exploring the development of yourself, your unique edge that makes you glad to be alive, the thing that gives you pride when the doors are closed and it's just you sitting there, the thing that makes you proud of your efforts and the involvement and the achievements that you've had that were your ideas, not just the work for somebody else. And remember, imagination is not a skill. However, the more you use it, the better you will get at it. Anything exercised becomes stronger. If you exercise your imagination, you will get better at finding ways to have that produce better ideas, things that you can grasp, that you can write down and plan. And those things turn into more ideas. Have you ever watched a child who exercises their imagination on a regular basis? It's so easy for them to do so. They get lost in a wonderland with it because they are exercising it. And I'll say it again, that because they exercise it, it becomes stronger and easier to use. Any kind of weight is easier to lift when the muscles behind it are ready to lift it. Another obstacle that a lot of people face is they think that because they're an adult, that their imagination is not as usable, that it's just not as available as when we were kids. And again, I'll say that it's just not true. There are some things that you can spark that childlike interest in you again. And one of them is to just allow yourself to color outside of the lines. And I say that figuratively. What I mean is go ahead and cut loose. The ways that I do it, I love to baby talk my dogs. I love to sing in ways that are just obnoxious, and it often gives me words to use that don't even exist. Another big one for me, when I make up lyrics, I don't care if it makes sense. I make up lyrics that rhyme. I don't care if it means anything to anybody. I make them up, and it's very satisfying to me. Now, the important thing, it gives me a foothold that my imagination is now on the run, and your imagination has energy of its own. You've experienced this. That's why it was so satisfying as a child, because you were experiencing it. You were doing nothing to suppress it or hold it back. You can do that again. Go ahead, color outside the lines, but be active in it. You must engage in your imagination and let it be wrong. Let it be something that is just wild and out of proportion, because I'll bet that is where you're going to find your next best idea. The best thing that you can do is start. A lot of people think that there are techniques involved in using your imagination, and maybe so. But if you're thinking in terms of technique, I'd say let it go. If there's something that you're wanting to write, start writing it. If there's something you're wanting to build, start designing it. If you want to just simply plan a party, start making the list of everything that needs to be done to make that party. Take it into your own world now. What is it that you know you can just start? And it will feed that imagination to build those ideas that will one day be something that you'll be proud that you started and that you'll be very satisfied that you finish. If you still think that you fall short and you just don't have the motivation to start, and you might need outside inspiration to help you, one of the things I do is I'll start every morning by reading something that inspires me to be imaginative, to be creative. Two of my favorite books of all time, and these are mine, they don't have to be yours, but they really set free the blockade. They got rid of the obstacles in front of me. The first one is a book by Steven Pressfield called The War of Art. This is a book that greatly talks about things that hold us back in our imagination, why we don't start, the thoughts that we have that keep us suppressed and keep us in our little mini bubble that we know we hate and that we want to burst out of. Another book is a book by Twyla Tharp called The Creative Habit, and she gives a lot of countless ways in this book. There's exercises at the end of each chapter on how to break free from the foothold that you're already satisfied with, and that helps you to break into your own imagination and feel that vibe that makes it so much fun to use it and create. You might think that your imagination has faded and that it's just not what it used to be. And this is not true. It's waiting for you to use it. Just like any tool on the shelf, if you ignore it, it will gather dust, but it is still there. One of the main things that you can do to reignite that imagination, of course, we've already talked about get started, but once you are, make a routine out of it. And this one, I'll be so bold as to say, no matter what. One exercise that I do with myself is each day I have what's called a no matter what jar. I put things in that jar that when I pull them out, I do not have a choice of whether or not I can do it. Have a no matter what jar. Even if you don't have one physically, have one in your mind that, for example, at 8 o'clock every Tuesday, you're going to sit down and you're going to write. It doesn't matter what you write, you're going to write, or you're going to play the instrument, or you're going to call the people that you're interacting with. You're going to have a routine that helps feed that imagination. And that is where you're going to have your ideas. And nothing on the planet is so strong and so purifying to your essence as a human being as your ideas, especially when you work them and you see them come to fruition in your own life. In the end, your imagination is going to get stronger. If you can commit to using it, it will get stronger and it will become more fun to use. And you might find yourself using it in ways that don't pertain to just the idea where you started. For example, one of the ways I use my imagination, if I'm sitting at a stoplight and I've got 30 seconds to wait, I'll go through a piece of music in my mind, fingering it and changing the fingerings. Sometimes when I'm going for a run, I'll work out bass lines in my head that they may or may not come to fruition when I get home, but at least I'm working that imagination and enjoying it to the point that I know the ideas are worth it. Now, one tool that I favor in working your imagination in any way is I carry my cell phone with me and I have the voice memo ready to go. And sometimes I will stop in odd situations, whether it be in a grocery store, on the trail, or on the sidewalk, because ideas are the most golden part of your life. If you have an idea, record that idea. And as Twyla Tharp says, if you think you're going to remember it, you're wrong. Record the idea and get the details that are fresh in your mind then, but use that tool. And again, when you revisit that, you will do nothing but strengthen and enjoy strengthening your imagination. And I want to give you a secret to getting started, because we all tend to hold back when we're starting something that's so vulnerable as our own imagination. Don't show anybody your work. Keep it a secret, but stay involved. Keep the notebook hidden. Write what you want to write, or design what you want to design, or create what you want to create. But keep it to yourself. And when you do this, when you enjoy that privacy, be sure to also do whatever your mind asks you to do. This is so important. You've got to get used to coloring outside of these lines and letting your imagination just fly for you to get your best ideas, that you can look at it and say, that one idea might work, because it's from all of the wild energy that the controlled energy can happen. After a while, you'll probably get tired of keeping these beautiful secrets to yourself, because you're going to find that a couple of core ideas are starting to develop and you want to share them. You'll feel the excitement burning inside you that you wish somebody knew. And you might hold back because you don't want criticism. And I understand that. We think that other people can put our flame out, but it's the opposite. Once you get more comfortable, not totally comfortable, once you get more comfortable engaging in these ideas, and you find something that you want to share, find a person that you can trust, but also find somebody that you might be able to collaborate with. It's in collaboration that ideas become exponential. Did you know that Walt Disney While he did a lot of the work in animation, he had a team of 18 animators that worked for him, and he got to the point where he would run that machine and just look over their shoulder and say whether or not those ideas were going to take. The Beatles had George Martin looking over their shoulders, telling them if the songs were going to catch and if they weren't. They collaborated together until they had what was some of the best music of its day. And even the presidents of the United States have speeches written for them on the ideas that they have in their mind. So don't be afraid to open up and share it with somebody. It's in collaboration that your ideas are going to become exponential. You may have lived a life where your imagination was considered one of the least important parts of your life. That you worked the job, you came home, you did what you were told to do, and sometimes that happens as an adult, and you just feel like imagination is not essential to your life. You're overlooking one of the greatest things. If imagination is not essential to life, we would not have the Declaration of Independence. We would not have the orchestra in the background on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band, and we would not have a rocket on the moon. Imagination was the very first part of all of those things. If you're holding back because you feel like you do not have permission and you need it, you've got your permission. I'm giving it to you right now. Go ahead, live your best life, but do it with your own imagination as the keystone that pushes you forward to create a better tomorrow, not just the same tomorrow. It is through your imagination and the permission that you give yourself that's going to build your world, it's going to build your mind, and it's going to make you a very satisfied person every morning that you wake up. And prepare yourself to make some mistakes. Mistakes are the most important part of it. If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything about it. The person that just sits and watches everybody live a passionate life, they're not going to fail and they're not going to succeed. They're also not going to live. When you make that mistake, you can examine it. You know that it's a result of your idea. You can change things about it or completely throw it away. But it's by doing it, you are now in motion of becoming the person that you know you can become. The more mistakes that you make, the more you can filter out who that is and how to do that. Even our hero, Walt Disney, failed miserably in the beginning and totally had the sheets pulled out from under him when he let go of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. You may not remember, but Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was the first personification of another character that came from it that is the most identified animation in history, known as Mickey Mouse. The most wonderful gift of imagination is often the hardest part, that nobody can do it for you. You have to let it ride. Just like when Walt Disney took that train ride, he wasn't inhibited by what other people thought. He was inspired by the fantasy, and he just continued to stay involved. He was intrigued. He worked his ideas until it became an empire. You too can work your ideas, you can work that imagination, but you have to do it. You're the only person who can enjoy and work the energy that is unique to yourself. You don't have to wait 40 years, and you don't have to wait to have a midlife crisis to be motivated to exercise these visions that are going to be so satisfying to you and your life. Tune in next time when we address the key culprit that holds everybody back. We're going to be talking about the poison of procrastination and how to overcome it, guaranteed. This musical feature will have Myra Svoboda on the bass guitar. We would like to take you into the No Bow Tie Laboratory, the workshop, where we make the music that we play on stage. We take classical compositions, deconstruct them, and then reconstruct it to fit the grooves that you hear in the 21st century. All of the music is from the great compositions of history's past. We delight in using our imagination so that we can bring it to you for toe-tapping good fun. This is Héctor Villalobos, Teresina de Jesus. We hope you enjoy.